A millionaire is astonished when he recognizes the ring of a coffee shop attendant. What happened next impressed everyone. Before the story begins, comment below which city you're watching the video from. We love getting to know our viewers. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss more exciting stories. Enjoy the story and see you soon. Ethan Morales walked through the city's streets on a clear, warm morning. The sunlight seemed to cast a soft golden hue over everything, and the fresh, fragrant air brought him an unusual blend of peace and nostalgia. He decided to stop at a small cafe at the end of the avenue. In elegant letters, the sign read, "Aromatic Memories," and something about the name drew him in, as if it held a promise of warmth, of forgotten moments. As he entered, the sound of door chimes and the aroma of freshly ground coffee filled the space with a welcoming feel. Sunlight poured in through the windows, falling onto the wooden tables and creating warm reflections. Ethan calmly observed the ambience and for a moment allowed himself to savor the experience, something he hadn't done in years. Then his eyes fell upon the young woman behind the counter. She was in her 20s, with a soft smile and a serene expression. There was something familiar about her face, something that felt strangely close to him. When she approached to take his order, he noticed a small ring on her hand. It was an old silver ring with a subtle yet elegant engraving. His heart skipped a beat. He recognized that ring. It was identical to one he had given to someone very special, someone he had left behind more than 20 years ago. The young woman smiled again, waiting for his order, and he, slightly dazed, asked for a black coffee. As she prepared his drink, Ethan couldn't stop staring at the ring. His mind began to drift to distant memories, to days when he and Sophia had dreamed together of a future full of promises. Could it be possible? Could this young woman have a connection to his past? "Here you go, sir," she said, interrupting his thoughts as she handed him the cup of coffee with a gentle smile. Ethan took the cup, still lost in thought. Something in his heart told him this coincidence was no accident. Curiosity began to burn within him, growing stronger with each sip of coffee. He couldn't shake the thought. What if this young woman was more than just a barista? What if he was facing a link to a past he had tried to bury? Determined to understand the situation, Ethan left the cafe with the young woman's name in mind, Isabel. A simple name but filled with meaning, and in her eyes he noticed a mix of sweetness and strength that silently reminded him of Sophia. Nostalgia and curiosity consumed him. Could Isabel, for some inexplicable reason, be his daughter? That night, as silence filled his luxurious apartment, Ethan couldn't escape his unease. The shadows of his past decisions seemed to close in around him. It was one of the few nights when he, a man always known for his determination, felt truly vulnerable. The next day, he made a decision. He needed answers. He decided to hire a private investigator, a trusted man he had used before for some delicate matters. Lucas Romero, a meticulous and discreet man, was the right person to follow this trail without raising any suspicion. In a brief meeting, he explained the situation without going into too many personal details, only that he had encountered a young woman in a cafe who might be related to someone significant from his past. "I need to know who she is, Lucas," he said in a grave, almost whispered tone. "I need to know if she's really Sophia's daughter." Lucas looked at him with a mixture of curiosity and professionalism. It was an unusual job for him, but he accepted without question. He promised Ethan he would have the information in a few days. Over the following days, Ethan returned to Aromatic Memories frequently, observing Isabel from a distance, careful not to disturb her routine. Each time she smiled as she handed him his coffee, he felt a mix of relief and dread, a tension between what he hoped to find and the fear of the consequences of reopening a door to the past. The wait for Lucas's report felt eternal, but deep in his heart, Ethan already felt that somehow Isabel was a part of his life. The possibility filled him with a faint hope and reminded him of the responsibility of confronting what he had once left behind. Now, all that remained was to uncover the truth and prepare for the impact of what was to come. The report arrived sooner than Ethan had expected. A brief call from Lucas summoned him to his office, situated in a discreet building in the city center. With his heart pounding, Ethan went straight there, feeling both anxious and afraid. Upon entering, he found Lucas sitting at his desk, holding a folder of documents with a calm yet serious expression. "Here's the information you asked for, Ethan," Lucas said, handing him the folder. "I need you to be prepared for what you're about to read." Ethan nodded silently, took the folder, and began to read. With each page, his expression grew more tense. The documents confirmed what his heart had already suspected. Isabel was indeed Sophia's daughter. The records detailed her birth, upbringing, and a life marked by her mother's hard work and sacrifice, raising her alone. Reaching the end of the report, Ethan felt a mix of emotions he hadn't experienced in years. Isabel wasn't only Sophia's daughter, everything indicated she was his daughter too. The years of distance and silence flooded his mind, and guilt began to tear at him from within. He remembered the young barista, her curious eyes, her gentle smile, and wondered how many important moments he had missed in her life because he was focused on his own dreams and ambitions. "So what are you going to do now?" Lucas asked, breaking the silence. Ethan took a deep breath, trying to gather his thoughts. He was facing a difficult decision. He could walk away and let Isabel continue her life undisturbed, or he could try to approach her and reclaim the lost time, even if it meant reopening old wounds. "I can't just walk away," he finally said, his voice firm. "I need to get to know her, to understand who she is. Maybe even tell her who I am." Lucas nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "If you want my advice, proceed with caution," he suggested. "She's young, Ethan, and she's lived her whole life without a father. We don't know how she'll react." Ethan accepted the advice and decided to approach Isabel slowly, visiting aromatic memories more frequently, observing and learning about her life from a safe distance. He started to notice her routine, her small gestures while serving customers, the way her laughter filled the space when she joked with regulars. Each day, Ethan felt a deeper connection, as if he were rediscovering parts of himself that he had long forgotten. One afternoon, as he watched her, he noticed a spark of excitement in her eyes as she spoke with a friend about something that seemed to deeply thrill her. Ethan moved a bit closer, pretending to be distracted, and caught a part of the conversation. "My dream has always been to open an art school for the kids in the community," Isabel was saying, her enthusiasm unmistakable. "I want them to have a place where they can express themselves, where they don't have to worry about anything except creating." Ethan felt profoundly moved. In that moment, he realized that Isabel was not only talented, but also had a genuine calling to help others. A paternal instinct, something almost foreign to him, began to awaken. Could he help her achieve that dream? Could that be a way to repair, at least partially, the damage caused by his absence? Weeks went by, and Ethan continued visiting the cafe regularly, learning more about Isabel and seeing how each day reminded him a bit more of Sophia. He couldn't help but wonder if this desire to approach her was fair, or if he was simply complicating the life of a young woman who had never asked for his presence. Finally, Lucas suggested that Ethan should have an honest conversation with Sophia. Perhaps she could help him understand how to proceed without causing harm to Isabel. Reluctant at first, Ethan agreed. If there was anyone who could guide him in this new and strange relationship, it was Sophia. Ethan left Lucas's office with the weight of the truth heavy on his shoulders. Now, more than ever, he knew he needed to act carefully, but also with courage. Ethan waited in a park shaded by towering trees that shielded the warm afternoon sun. He had asked Sophia to meet him there to talk, and while he had no idea how she would react, he knew he had to face this moment. Every second of waiting was a reminder of the choices he had made years ago, the same choices that had led him to lose sight of the woman he once loved deeply. When Sophia arrived, Ethan recognized her immediately. Though time had etched its marks on her face, the strength in her gaze remained intact, and her confident stance reminded him why he had once loved her so profoundly. She looked at him with seriousness, almost as if he were a stranger. "Ethan, I never expected to see you again," Sophia said, her voice firm but tinged with a faint note of disbelief. Ethan swallowed, searching for the right words. Facing the past was never easy, especially when it was laden with decisions that had distanced him from what he once considered his life. "Sophia, I'm truly sorry for seeking you out like this. But there's something important I need to tell you," he began, his voice barely above a whisper. He took a moment before continuing. "A few weeks ago, I met Isabel. I've seen her at the cafe where she works, and from the first moment I knew there was something familiar about her." Sophia took a deep breath, but her expression remained steady, almost impassive. Ethan couldn't tell if it was anger, surprise, or simply disappointment that he saw in her eyes. "So, you know that Isabel is my daughter," Sophia responded, controlling her emotions, but with a slight tremor in her words. "And yes, Ethan, she is also your daughter." Ethan felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath his feet. Though he had suspected it, hearing Sophia confirm it struck him with unexpected force. Guilt and regret washed over him, reminding him of the times he had prioritized his career and ambitions over their relationship and the future he might have had with her. "Sophia, I had no idea. I thought we would never see each other again, and that you had moved on," Ethan said, attempting to explain. "I never imagined you had a child, let alone that she could be mine." Sophia looked at him sharply, her face showing a mix of resentment and sadness. "Ethan, you left without looking back. You decided that your career was more important and told me not to wait for you. I respected your decision, and when I found out I was pregnant, there was nothing left to say. I chose to raise Isabel on my own, without interference, and I never thought of looking for you or asking for anything." Sophia's words fell like a sentence upon Ethan, who realized he had abandoned more than a relationship. He had lost the chance to be by his daughter's side, to be a present figure in her life. He tried to step closer, but Sophia raised her hand, stopping him. "Don't misunderstand, Ethan. Isabel doesn't need a father now. She grew up without one and is a strong, independent young woman with her own dreams. I don't want you to come back just because you feel guilty," Sophia stated, with a coldness Ethan hadn't seen before. He, however, was determined not to walk away so easily. He knew he needed a second chance, and that Isabel, whether she realized it or not, deserved to know the truth. "Sophia, I know I failed you. I failed both of you. I'm not here seeking redemption, but a chance to know Isabel, to be a part of her life, even if only in a small way," Ethan said, his voice low but firm. Sophia looked at him, and for an instant, Ethan glimpsed the woman he had loved, the same woman who once shared dreams and hopes with him. Finally, Sophia sighed, as if releasing the weight of years of resentment and pain. "If you truly want to get to know Isabel, do it with respect. She's a woman who doesn't need someone who only shows up when it's convenient. If you're really here to stay, you'll have to earn her trust," she warned. Ethan nodded, understanding the gravity of her words. He knew that the path to winning Isabel's affection and trust would be long and complicated, but for the first time in years, he was willing to do whatever it took to correct his mistakes and take on the role he had unknowingly abandoned so long ago. Over the following weeks, Ethan continued visiting aromatic memories nearly every day, as if each visit was a step on the path to his own redemption. He watched Isabel as she served customers, capturing each of her gestures, every smile, feeling proud of the young woman she had become. Yet, a constant tension tormented him. How could he approach her without shattering the stability Sophia had given her? Finally, the day came when he decided to take the risk. That day, Isabel seemed more relaxed. The flow of customers had slowed, and she was taking a break behind the counter, enjoying a cup of coffee. Ethan approached slowly, his heart pounding in his chest. "Isabel, may I speak with you for a moment?" he asked gently, trying not to come across as intrusive. Isabel looked up, somewhat surprised, but nodded politely. Ethan sat across from her, feeling the weight of his words before he even spoke them. "I know this might sound strange, but there's something important I need to tell you," he began, unsure of how to explain what he had held back for so long. "I've been coming here these past weeks because, well, you remind me of someone from my past, someone very dear to me." Isabel looked at him with a mix of curiosity and unease, not fully understanding where the conversation was heading. "Who do I remind you of?" she asked with a kind smile, though her eyes reflected a hint of distrust. Ethan took a deep breath, preparing for the impact of what he was about to reveal. "Many years ago, I knew your mother, Sophia," he continued. "We were very close. We had a relationship that at the time we believed would last forever, but for reasons that don't matter now, we went our separate ways. Until recently, I didn't know she had a daughter, or that this daughter might be mine." Isabel's face changed instantly, her expression shifting from surprise to disbelief. It was clear that Ethan's words had unsettled her, as though she were trying to process something that seemed impossible. She let go of the coffee cup in her hands and stared at him intently, searching his eyes for any trace of deceit. "Are you saying that you're my father?" she asked, her voice trembling with a mix of disbelief and restrained anger. Ethan nodded, feeling the weight of his admission. He knew the truth might hurt her, but he also knew it was something she had the right to hear. "I can't give you the time I've lost, Isabel. I can't make up for the years I wasn't by your side, but I want you to know that my intention is to get to know you, to help you however I can, if you'll allow me to be a part of your life, even in a small way," Ethan explained, trying to convey his sincerity. Isabel stood up abruptly, looking at Ethan with a mixture of frustration and confusion. The intensity of her emotions was palpable, and her eyes shone with restrained fury. "Do you think you can just show up out of nowhere and tell me you're my father?" she said in a furious whisper. "Do you think that's going to make me feel like I suddenly have a dad?" Ethan tried to remain calm, understanding that his words had stirred up years of unmet expectations and disappointed dreams. "I don't expect you to accept me right away, nor for this to change your life overnight," he responded, his voice soft and steady. "I only want a chance to get to know you, to be someone who supports you. I want to be a part of your life, if you'll let me." Isabel looked at him for a moment, her jaw clenched, as if she wanted to scream, but was holding back her emotions. Finally, without saying another word, she turned on her heel and headed toward the back of the cafe, leaving Ethan alone in the middle of the room. For him, her reaction wasn't unexpected. He knew the news would be a hard blow to accept. But now he had put the truth out there, and the first step had been taken. Despite Isabel's anger, he held on to hope that, with time, she might come to understand his intentions. After the tense encounter with Ethan, Isabel found herself overwhelmed by a wave of emotions that were difficult to process. The revelation that this man, a regular and seemingly kind customer, was her father, had thrown her world off balance. The following days were filled with a confusing silence. She wasn't even sure how to face this new reality. Despite her initial rejection, a latent curiosity began to emerge, a persistent question about what Ethan was truly seeking and whether there was any sincerity in his words. One calm afternoon, after closing the cafe, Isabel stayed behind to organize the shelves. Ethan entered just before closing, intending to give her space, but also hoping for another chance to talk. He greeted her cautiously, and this time, to his surprise, Isabel allowed him to stay. "I don't want to talk about what you said last time," Isabel began firmly, "but I do want to understand why you're here, why you're suddenly so interested in me." Ethan nodded, understanding that honesty was his best option. "Isabel, I don't expect this to make things easy between us, and I know my words might sound empty. But I came here because I felt I needed to know you, to understand who you are. Learning that you're my daughter and realizing I've missed so many years with you made me see how important it is to at least try," he explained softly. Isabel watched him in silence, still somewhat distant, but there was a glint of curiosity in her eyes, as if she were searching for traces of authenticity in his words. After a moment, she dared to share a piece of herself, perhaps testing whether Ethan truly cared about getting to know her. "Ever since I was a child, I've dreamed of opening an art school," she said, her voice softer, almost a whisper. "I want the young people in our community to have a place where they can express themselves, where they don't have to worry about money or anyone else's expectations." Ethan's eyes lit up as he listened, amazed by Isabel's passion and idealism. Her vision reminded him a bit of Sophia, and it also reminded him of his own youth, back when he too had dreams before ambition and success consumed him. He felt that this was his chance to connect with her in a way that could truly add value to her life. "It's a beautiful dream, Isabel," he replied, moved, "and I'm willing to help you if that's what you want. I have the resources and the desire to support something that has real meaning." Isabel looked at him with surprise and distrust, as though trying to discern if his words were genuine or just an attempt to win her over. She was used to fighting for everything she had achieved, and the idea of accepting help from a man she barely knew and who now claimed to be her father felt, in some ways, unsettling. "I don't want you to think you can just walk into my life and solve everything," she said seriously. "I've worked on my own to get where I am, and my dream isn't something I need someone else to fulfill for me." Ethan understood Isabel's strength and the independence she had built without him. He didn't want to be the one to solve all her problems. Instead, he wanted to be there as support, without imposing, respecting the boundaries she chose to set. "I understand, Isabel," he replied with a slight smile. "My intention isn't to control you or take away your independence. I just want you to know that I'm here and you can count on me if you ever need it." Isabel lowered her gaze, considering Ethan's words. Although she still felt a barrier between them, there was something in his tone that hinted at sincerity. After a moment of silence, she decided to relent slightly, allowing him to share in a small step of her project. "If you really want to help, you can come to the meetings we're organizing to raise funds for the school," she finally said, maintaining a firm stance. "I'm not promising anything, but if you're truly here to support me, you can start there." Ethan nodded, accepting her offer with gratitude. He knew that, although Isabel didn't fully trust him yet, this small gesture was progress. He was willing to work and prove that he was there not only to help her realize her dream, but also to rebuild, step by step, the bond broken by years of silence. The fundraising meetings began soon, and Isabel's project to open an art school started taking shape over the following days. Ethan attended every session, mostly in silence, observing and listening as Isabel led with passion and determination. For him, each meeting was an opportunity to know her a little better, and although she still kept some distance, he felt grateful to be part of her life, even if in a limited way, However, not everyone was pleased with his presence. Elena, Ethan's older sister, had learned of his sudden involvement in Isabel's life and decided to confront him. Elena, a strong-willed woman who had always disapproved of Ethan's impulsive decisions, invited him to a conversation at the small hotel she managed in the city. "Ethan, what are you trying to do?" she asked critically as soon as they sat in the hotel lobby. "Do you really think you can make up for the past by just showing up out of nowhere?" Ethan sighed, understanding that Elena had valid reasons to distrust him. He knew she had witnessed his selfish decisions and had seen how he left Sophia years ago without a second thought. "I'm not trying to erase the past, Elena. I just want to do things right now after so many years of mistakes," he replied calmly. "Isabel has dreams, and if I can be of any help in her life, then I want to do that." Elena looked at him skeptically, crossing her arms in disapproval. "You can't just walk into this girl's life because you feel guilty. Guilt doesn't make you a good father, Ethan, especially not when you're late, and she's already grown up without you," she retorted sharply. "I know Elena, and I have no illusions that this will be easy or that she'll accept me right away. But if you know me, you know that when I truly commit to something, I mean it," Ethan insisted, trying to convey his perspective. "I don't want Isabel to feel like I'm invading her life. I just want to be a support if she allows it." Elena sighed, scrutinizing him as if trying to gauge the sincerity in his face. Finally, she nodded with a mixture of resignation and caution. "If you're really set on doing this, you'll have to earn it, Ethan. She's not a child, and you have no right to impose yourself in her life. But if this is truly what you want, then I hope you don't hurt her." Meanwhile, at Aromatic Memories, Isabel was deeply immersed in planning her project. Not only did she need financial support, but she also required permits and connections to secure an adequate space for the art school. As she shared her ideas with Ethan, she started to recognize that, in many ways, he had the experience and contacts that could facilitate the process. However, not everyone at the cafe supported Ethan's involvement in Isabel's life. Carlos Herrera, an old friend of Sophia's and a regular at Aromatic Memories, had noticed Ethan's frequent presence. Although he didn't know the exact nature of Ethan's relationship with Isabel, he sensed something was amiss. Carlos had always felt a protective affection toward Sophia and Isabel, and the arrival of a man from Sophia's past seemed like a threat to the peace they had built. One afternoon, while Ethan was attending a meeting at the cafe, Carlos approached him directly and without hesitation. "Ethan, I've noticed you've been around a lot lately, and I'm not one to question your motives, but I have to ask, what is it that you really want from Isabel?" Carlos asked, his expression severe. Ethan, aware of Carlos's close relationship with Sophia, decided to respond with honesty. "Carlos, I know this seems sudden, but I only want to help Isabel. She's important to me and, well, I have personal reasons for being here," he replied firmly, avoiding disclosing too much. Carlos frowned, clearly dissatisfied with Ethan's response. "Look, Ethan, I don't know what history you have with Sophia, much less with Isabel, but I assure you that if you try to hurt or manipulate them, I won't just stand by. They've been through enough, and I won't let anyone come in and disrupt their lives," he warned, with a clear intention to protect both women. Ethan felt the weight of Carlos's words, but he didn't back down. He knew he was in the midst of a delicate situation, with multiple obstacles on his path to reaching Isabel. Even so, he accepted that he would have to prove not only to Isabel, but also to those around her, that his intentions were genuine. As he left the cafe that evening, Ethan realized that the challenge wasn't limited to earning Isabel's trust. He would also have to face the skepticism and doubts of those who had been by her side in his absence. Each step seemed more complicated, but he was determined to move forward despite the obstacles. As Ethan tried to involve himself in Isabel's life and support her project, Carlos Herrera continued to watch his every move, determined to protect Sofia and her daughter. There was something about the way Ethan approached Isabel that felt calculated, and Carlos's distrust grew with each passing day. He sensed that dark aspects of Ethan's past might threaten the stability Sofia had worked so hard to build. One afternoon, Carlos took advantage of a quiet moment when Sofia was alone in the cafe to share his concerns. "Sofia, forgive me for interfering, but I need to know if you truly trust Ethan. Are you sure it's wise to let him get close to Isabel?" Carlos asked, his voice laced with the worry that had been troubling him. Sofia sighed, not entirely sure how to respond. Though she also felt some lingering doubts about Ethan, she had been clear that he would need to earn Isabel's trust, no matter how difficult it might be. She knew that, despite his mistakes, Ethan seemed genuinely intent on making amends. "Carlos, it's not easy for me either," Sofia admitted. "Ethan was very important in my life, and I know he made choices that hurt both of us. But if he genuinely wants to help Isabel, I can't deny him that chance. She's an adult and has the right to decide whether or not she wants him in her life." Carlos nodded, though he didn't seem convinced. He knew his words might sound invasive, but he decided to take the risk and say what he truly felt. "Sofia, I don't want you to deceive yourself. There may be things about Ethan's past that you don't know, choices he made to advance his career even if it meant harming those who trusted him. I just want to make sure Isabel is protected." Carlos's warning left Sofia with a sinking feeling. Deep down, she feared he might be right. What if Ethan was only in their lives to ease his conscience? What if his closeness to Isabel was simply a way to compensate for his past mistakes without truly caring about her? The doubts troubled her more than she wanted to admit. A few days later, Ethan crossed paths with Carlos again at the cafe. This time, Carlos decided to be direct and confront him about his presence in Isabel's life. "Ethan, I think it's time for you to be honest. Why did you decide to come back now after so many years?" Carlos asked, his tone severe. Ethan looked at him, understanding that the situation wouldn't improve if he continued to evade the question. "Carlos, I won't lie to you. I made many mistakes in the past, and Sofia and Isabel paid a high price for my decisions," he admitted sincerely. "I'm not here on a whim or a last-minute impulse. I'm here because I want to redeem myself and help Isabel achieve her dream." Carlos regarded him with a mix of doubt and determination, unwilling to let the conversation end without clear answers. "And do you really think you can redeem yourself? Do you think your presence is what Isabel needs?" Carlos challenged him, his words blunt. "Because she doesn't need someone who's just looking to ease their guilt." Carlos's harsh words struck Ethan, but rather than respond in anger, he lowered his gaze, aware that Carlos was right in many ways. "You're right, Carlos. I can't erase the past. And I know Isabel might not need me in her life. But I need to be there for her, not to soothe my guilt, but because I believe in her dream. I want to be a genuine support," Ethan replied, his voice heavy with sincerity. Carlos observed him in silence, trying to discern the truth in his words. Finally, he seemed to relax his stance, though he remained cautious. "Ethan, you're not wrong if you think that Sofia and Isabel mean a great deal to me. I've always been by their side, and I won't hesitate to do whatever is necessary to protect them from harm," he warned firmly. "I hope you truly understand what it means to involve yourself in their lives." Ethan nodded, accepting the challenge implicit in Carlos's words. He knew it wouldn't be easy to earn Isabel's trust or the acceptance of those who had supported her in his absence. Every step he took toward her seemed to awaken shadows from his past, people and memories that forced him to confront the version of himself he had left behind. That night, Ethan reflected deeply on his choices and intentions. He understood that the path to reaching Isabel was full of obstacles, and that every step forward meant facing the mistakes he had buried in the past. However, for the first time in years, he was willing to do whatever it took to prove he truly wanted to be there for her. With that resolve in mind, Ethan prepared for the next steps, aware that although the journey wouldn't be easy, the effort would be worth it if he could earn a place in his daughter's heart. Isabel's art school project had finally started to take shape. Thanks to the funds raised and the tireless work of all involved, the project was becoming a reality, and Isabel's excitement was palpable. To celebrate this progress, Isabel organized a gathering at Aromatic Memories, inviting sponsors, friends, and everyone who had contributed in some way. The evening was a blend of joy and hope, marking the first step toward her dream. Ethan was there, watching with pride the results of weeks of hard work. Seeing Isabel radiant, surrounded by people who believed in her project, filled him with a satisfaction he had rarely felt. He promised himself to continue supporting her, no matter what challenges lay ahead. But that night, among the guests, was another person, an old friend of Ethan's and one of the project's primary sponsors. This man, Roberto Salinas, was known for being a shrewd and, at times, manipulative businessman. As he approached Isabel to congratulate her, he let slip a comment that did not go unnoticed. "Isabel, your father has done so much to make all of this possible. I can only imagine the lengths he's gone to for this project, even some less obvious maneuvers to gain your trust," he said with an enigmatic smile. Isabel looked at him, sensing something off in his words. "What do you mean?" she asked, trying to stay calm, though doubt began to gnaw at her. Noting her reaction, Roberto decided to elaborate on what he knew, unconcerned about the consequences of his words. "Well, let's just say that Ethan moved a few pieces in his favor to be in your life, but of course he did it with the best intentions," he replied with a sarcastic smile. "Just remember, not every gesture is as selfless as it seems." A chill ran down Isabel's spine. The idea that Ethan might have manipulated the situation to get close to her felt like an unforgivable betrayal. Her mind flooded with questions and memories of the moments when Ethan had tried to connect with her, of the promises he had made, and his apparent sincerity. The fragile trust she had slowly been building crumbled in an instant. Without thinking twice, she sought Ethan among the crowd, and when she found him, she confronted him with a look filled with reproach and pain. "Is it true? Did you manipulate this situation just to get close to me?" she asked, her voice trembling with restrained anger. Ethan, stunned by the accusation, tried to explain, but Isabel's words stopped him. "I thought you wanted to support me for who I am, not because of guilt or some strategy to redeem yourself," Isabel continued, her eyes filled with disappointment. "I never asked you to be in my life, especially not if it involved lies and manipulation." Ethan tried to stay calm and handle the situation maturely, but the hardness in Isabel's eyes filled him with profound sadness. He knew that, despite his genuine intentions, he had made mistakes along the way. "Isabel, please listen. It was never my intention to manipulate anything. All I wanted was to be part of your life and support you. Yes, maybe I made mistakes in how I approach things, but my feelings are sincere," he attempted to explain, his voice filled with honesty. But Isabel was too hurt to listen. She felt as though Ethan had used her dream as a means to force a relationship she wasn't even sure she wanted. "I don't need your excuses, Ethan. If you truly wanted to be part of my life, this wasn't the way," she replied firmly. "It pains me to say it, but I would rather you stay away. This was my dream, not a tool for your redemption." With those words, Isabel turned and walked away, leaving Ethan alone in the middle of the celebration. The party continued, but for him everything had lost its meaning. Despair enveloped him as he watched his daughter disappear into the crowd, taking with her the opportunity he had been trying to build. Ethan stood in silence, realizing that despite all his efforts, he had failed to show Isabel that he truly wanted a genuine bond. Roberto's words echoed in his mind, reminding him of the shadows of his past and how his old manipulative strategies still haunted him. The weeks following the confrontation at the celebration were a whirlwind of emotions for Isabel. The disappointment and pain she felt toward Ethan were deep, mixed with a lingering sense of emptiness and unanswered questions. She realized that despite everything, Ethan's presence had meant something to her, even if only briefly. With him, she had felt for the first time what it might be like to have a father, someone who supported her and believed in her dreams. However, her resentment over his apparent manipulation remained strong. Meanwhile, Ethan grappled with his own failure. He had tried to build something real with Isabel, but his past mistakes and his flawed approach had worked against him. Now he was left with the harsh truth that his attempts at redemption might not have been as selfless as he thought. One night, lost in his thoughts, Ethan decided he needed to be completely honest, both with Isabel and himself. That was when Sophia, who had been silently watching her daughter's struggle, decided to intervene. Standing by and watching Isabel consumed by confusion was no longer an option. She called Ethan and asked him to meet at the park, where they had first reunited months earlier. "Ethan, I know you've been trying to do the right thing, even if it hasn't gone as planned. Isabel has been feeling lost, and I believe only you can clarify things for her. But you need to speak from the heart, without holding back," Sophia advised him. Ethan listened, understanding that she was right. This was his last chance to show Isabel he was willing to open up sincerely, without trying to control or impose himself in her life on his terms. A few days later, Ethan went to Aromatic Memories, knowing Isabel would be alone, closing up the cafe. He found her wiping down tables, and when she saw him, her expression was a mix of surprise and discomfort. Nevertheless, she agreed to listen, if only one last time. "Isabel, I just need a few minutes. I'm not here to convince you of anything or to force you to accept my mistakes," he began, his tone filled with genuine regret. "I only want you to understand why I'm here." Isabel looked at him warily but nodded, allowing him to speak. "Everything I did because I saw you and felt a connection I can't explain. For the first time in my life, I realized what I had missed by not being by your side. I have no excuses for my mistakes or my absence. I acted out of ambition and selfishness, and I know that you and Sophia bore the weight of those choices," he said, his voice breaking. "I never meant to hurt you by trying to be close to you, and it pains me to know that in the end, I only ended up causing you more pain." Isabel lowered her gaze, moved by the sincerity in Ethan's words. She was still hurt, but his words seemed to come from a deeper place, without the pretense she had felt before. "Why weren't you honest from the beginning?" she asked, her voice revealing both anger and hurt. "Why didn't you tell me you came with your mistakes and your past instead of presenting yourself as someone who just wanted to help me?" Ethan sighed, knowing there was no easy answer. "Because I was afraid you'd reject me, that you'd never give me a chance to show you I wanted to be here for you," he admitted. "But now I understand that was a mistake, that I tried to control everything, and by doing so, failed at the one thing that mattered, being honest with you." A profound silence fell between them. Isabel, still uncertain, felt her anger start to dissolve, replaced by a budding sense of understanding. She knew Ethan had made mistakes, but she could also see he was willing to make amends and that there was a genuine desire in his eyes to be part of her life without imposing himself. Finally, with a softer voice, Isabel broke the silence. "I want to move forward with the art school, Ethan. I want to do something that genuinely helps others, and I'm willing to accept your support. But I need you to be just an accompanist this time. Someone who's there without trying to control everything." Ethan nodded, accepting her terms without hesitation. This time, he understood the importance of taking a step back and letting Isabel take the reins of her own dream. With a small smile, Isabel extended her hand to him, a symbol of a new beginning. Ethan took it, feeling that, although the path ahead wouldn't be easy, both of them were ready to rebuild something based on truth and respect. In that moment, they both understood that forgiveness and reconciliation wouldn't come overnight, but at least now they had a foundation to start from. Ethan's honesty and willingness to admit his faults opened a door to a fresh start, one where Isabel wouldn't be alone in her dream, and he would have the chance to prove, day by day, that he genuinely wanted to be part of her life without conditions. The day of the art school's inauguration arrived, filled with excitement and anticipation. The entire community had gathered to celebrate the start of this project, one driven by Isabel's determination and the promise of transforming the lives of many young people. The building, simple yet inviting, was decorated with works by the first students, emanating warmth and creativity, perfectly reflecting the dream Isabel had worked tirelessly to bring to life. Isabel, dressed simply but radiantly, greeted guests alongside her mother, Sophia, who had embraced the role of project director. With years of teaching experience and wisdom gained through hardships, Sophia provided the solid foundation Isabel needed to ensure the school's success. By their side, Ethan stood a bit apart, observing each detail with pride, understanding that his role in this new chapter was to accompany without intruding. Elena, Ethan's sister, had finally decided to join the celebration. Although she had initially doubted his intentions, witnessing her brother's dedication to supporting Isabel's dream had led her to reassess her own reservations. With a warm smile, she approached Ethan and gave him a brief hug, a gesture of reconciliation. "You've changed, Ethan. I accept that you're truly here to stay and that you're doing it with an open heart," Elena said sincerely. "Thank you, Elena. You know I've always valued your opinion, and having your support means so much to me," he responded, visibly moved. As guests explored the school, Isabel stepped onto a small, improvised stage to say a few words. Her eyes sparkled with excitement as she shared her vision for the art school and how each young person would have a space to explore their talents and build a future full of possibilities. The community responded with applause and encouragement, thrilled by the positive impact this project would bring. At the end of her speech, Isabel paused and searched for Ethan in the crowd. He met her gaze, unsure of what to expect, and was surprised when she invited him up to the stage. With a mix of timidity and determination, Isabel took the microphone and, looking at her father, chose to share something personal. This project wouldn't have been possible without the support of many people, and especially someone who decided to appear in my life when I least expected it, she said, with a gentle smile. "I want to thank Ethan for giving me a second chance, and for showing me that genuine support doesn't always come at the perfect time, but it can make all the difference when it's offered sincerely." Ethan felt his eyes welling up as the crowd applauded. Isabel, with a small smile, gave him a look of gratitude. It was a brief moment, but one laden with meaning, a sign that, although the journey had been challenging, both were willing to build something new, leaving past resentments behind. The celebration continued in a joyful atmosphere, and aromatic memories became the gathering place for everyone who had joined the cause. In a quiet corner, Sophia watched Ethan and Isabel with a look of peace, feeling that despite everything, they had created something beautiful. Carlos, her old friend, approached with a calm smile, acknowledging that love and perseverance had managed to overcome doubts and fears. As night fell and the space filled with laughter and lively conversations, Isabel realized that the past did not define who they were in the present. Despite the wounds and mistakes, she had chosen to open her heart and give a chance to those who wanted to support her. Ethan, Sophia, Elena, and everyone else had found a shared purpose, and together they were ready to face the future with newfound hope. From that day on, Aromatic Memories became more than a cafe. It transformed into a meeting place for all who sought to create, build, and heal. The art school grew under Isabel and Sophia's guidance, and Ethan, without seeking the spotlight, remained by their side, fulfilling his promise to be a sincere and steady support. In the end, life showed them that forgiveness and understanding could build bridges where there had once been distance, and that love, even when it arrives late, always has the power to create a new beginning. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey of reunions and second chances. If you enjoyed following Isabel and Ethan's path to forgiveness and redemption, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you don't miss more content like this. Now, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you think Isabel made the right choice by giving Ethan a second chance and letting him be part of her dream? Or do you believe she should have kept more distance? We'd love to read your opinions in the comments. Also, tell us, what would you have done in Ethan's place to show sincerity and earn Isabel and Sophia's trust? Your feedback is very important to us, so don't hesitate to share your thoughts. Thank you for your support, and we'll see you in the next video with more heartwarming stories full of life lessons.